Well, I don't think it is able to happen. But the basis upon which it's happening is that the AIPAC and the Israel lobby in this country tried to pass legislation in the state legislature in New York to criminalize membership of or support for boycott, divestment and sanctions. They failed in that endeavor, but Andrew Cuomo, the governor, wrote it into state law as an executive action just on his own as an individual. So there is a law of some kind, which I can't tell you exactly what it says, but which says that no organizational business is allowed to do business in New York State with a person such as me, who is involved in the boycott movement to try and encourage the Israeli government to modify its policies vis-a-vis the Palestinian. That's a two-part question. All right. Tom York is wrong about not endorsing the policies of the Israeli government by playing there. Spokespersons of that government have said how excited they are that this is the best thing that's happened for their Hasbara, which is the explaining to the rest of the world what a wonderful and precious democracy Israel is. And willy-nilly, when they cross the picket line, they are making a public statement that they do endorse the policies of the government, whatever they say, because that is what will be reported in Israel, and that is what gets reported around the world. That is why Radiohead are being so soundly criticized by anybody with progressive ideas about human rights, because they have taken that step. The other thing is about not performing in the United States or trying to boycott the United States. The people of the United States have not got together as a civil society and asked performers from the rest of the world not to come and perform in the United States because they are an occupied people and there is an organized resistance against the occupying army. Civil society in Palestine in 2005 started the BDS movement themselves. This isn't something imposed by a bunch of foreign rock musicians. This is something that they started, that they have organized, and they have made an appeal to all artists, writers, musicians, actors, directors, anybody in the rest of the world to observe the picket line which they have drawn, and to ask us not to observe a cultural boycott of the country. But in fact, that is where we're living now, where propaganda is more important than facts, far more important. And that is a huge news story now. This whole thing about fake news is that people have understood that the truth, facts, philosophy, knowledge, history, education, none of these things are important. In order to retain a position of power, you need to be really good at propaganda, and you need to be really good at telling big lies often and loud. And the last thing that you want in the mainstream media is anybody shining actual real light on anything. So people who actually care about the predicament of the human race, or about the future of this small vulnerable planet, or about their fellow human beings, and if they're being oppressed or killed or anything like that, it's best to keep them out of the way because they may interfere with the general narrative. It is now, the White House is an edifice symbolic of the function of government, which now seems to be to protect the tiny elite of very, very, very wealthy men who actually run this country, and the corporations who profit from the policies that are meted out by the Congress, that is bought and paid for by the donors who were given the liberties to make those donations by the Supreme Court in Citizens United, which is one of the most regressive pieces of legal doctrine to have found its way into society since the Second World War, and it's deplorable in every possible way. It means that you can buy, the whole political system is up for sale. because of that one particular law. So in consequence, it is a charade. The whole thing is a charade now. It has nothing to do with government of the people, by the people, for the people. There is no longer any safety net. This particular administration, it has shown and is completely honest about the fact that it wants to dismantle all humane federal governmental agencies that look after the environment, the old, the sick, the aged, anybody poor, they need to be destroyed on the altar of the advance of the corporations. And if what I was saying wasn't true, it would sound crazy, but it's not. It's actually true. So that must be kept from the public. It has to be kept off the mainstream media. We must not talk. We can't talk about it. And it's why you have to ask yourself why would we do that? Why would John McCain want to be going and having a war with Russia? Why would we be wanting to have more and more boats in the Black Sea or wherever they are? Why? Why this obsession with Russia? Why not? Why not? Maybe that's the only tiny bit of sense that Trump has made, is that it might be a good idea to actually have conversations with the Russians. The guy, I can't remember his name, but the foreign minister seems to be eminently sensible and eloquent.
Lavrov.
Yeah. And also people I think would do well to re-go over the interviews that Oliver Stone did with Putin. Because when you actually listen to it, if you would compare Vladimir Putin with Donald Trump, and you go, which man would you rather sit down and have a conversation with? There's no question. This one's a complete buffoon who doesn't make any sense, knows nothing about anything. This guy may be power hungry, and he may be, but at least he's coherent. At least he can string a sentence together. At least he reads about the political situations in the places that his country is involved in, which are, let it not be said, all on his doorstep. Putin is not frigging around in Mexico. He doesn't have nuclear missiles just over the Mexican border.
So you're obviously not afraid of being called a Putin apologist now, like Oliver has been, for pointing out these things.
No, of course I'm not afraid. It's just the reality of the situation. That gets back to the idea that what's important to the mainstream media is propaganda. And that's what it's about. It's become a tool of propaganda, maybe unwittingly to some large extent.